Hello, everyone. I am Christine Gritman, and this is, of course, Let's Talk About Brand. I do this show every single Friday at 12 noon Eastern, or whatever time it is where you are. Please do tell us where you are in the world, what time it is, where you're joining us, and where you're joining us. We are live right now on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Also, let us know if you are here live with us or if you're watching the replay. And if you are here live with us, bring on the questions. We would love to have a live conversation with you. And we have such a great guest today, so definitely take advantage of the opportunity to ask your burning event planning questions. So, as I mentioned, Let's Talk About Brand, this show every single Friday at noon. We have a different expert on a specific element of branding every single week. But this isn't the only conversation we have on that topic. We also have a chat called Chat About Brand every Tuesday at 12 noon. The Tuesday Twitter chat does not have a guest, but it is always on the same topic as the guest. And in fact, you have an opportunity to ask questions on the topic that I will ask on the show. So this past Tuesday on Twitter, we had a fantastic conversation about creating a branded event, what that even means, and how you can make sure that the brand feel, brand experience, brand values, all that jazz come through in your event. Speaking of events and jazz, our guest today is Phil Mershon. He is the head of events, among other things, for Social Media Examiner. And those of you who have followed me for a while know that every March, I'm super excited to head to San Diego for Social Media Marketing World. It's actually one of the last things I did before everything shut down in March 2020. I'm glad I got all my hugs in. I've certainly been clinging to those for a while. And I'm so excited that in just a month, I'm going to be getting those hugs restocked. I'm going to be having a link in the comments shortly, so you can actually check it out and hopefully join us in San Diego yourself. Anyway, without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Phil. So Phil, as I mentioned, works for Social Media Examiner. He is the one who puts together the whole vision and all sorts of stuff for Social Media Marketing World, which is their huge event every March in San Diego. He's also worked on other events also, and he is really the number one person I thought to speak to about such a topic, because he knows how to bring together an event that is an incredible experience. In fact, he's writing a book on how to create an unforgettable experience with live events. And so he's going to be talking to us today about how to create a branded event. So hello, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Wow, you've made me feel like a movie star, like I'm coming on a movie set or something. Thank you, Christine.
You are a movie star, Phil. My goodness. And anyone who has been to Social Media Marketing World knows that that is like, it doesn't ruin other events for you exactly. I still do enjoy other events, but it just raises the bar for what an event can be. So I'd love to hear from you just to get started. What are some of the really core fundamental things that you make sure are in place for any sort of event that you do when you want it to just be incredible?
Well, I'll talk about 3 C's. 3 C's make up an experience that can be unforgettable, combustible, a catalyst for change. And those 3 C's are the the conversations that people have. And that's just the one way where someone's teaching, but it's also the conversations that people are having in the hall. And so you want to create an environment where people are actually talking to each other and having important conversations. The second one is connections. People go to travel to an event, and we know this is really true right now with post-COVID world. If they're going to travel, they want to see people. Like you said, they want to hug each other, but they want to meet people that are like them. They want to meet people who are going to challenge them. They want to meet people who will lead to opportunities. And then the third thing is choices. And the choices encompass things like the environment that you're creating, like what colors to use, what music do you choose, how do you lay the environment out, but then also how do you help people make choices that are going to lead to their betterment. When you put those 3 things together, it leads to memories, it leads to meanings, and it leads to powerful moments.
I'm just loving all the alliteration you have going on. It's like seeing your book outline happening in real time, but I
That
love
was
that
it
so
right
much.
there.
One of the biggest things, and I have to say, the 3 C's in particular, I'm like, you're describing your event right there. Because one of the really big hallmarks of social media marketing world is the fact that you don't just have the speakers in their little VIP room with their bonbons, and then they're shuttled onto stage, and then they immediately go catch a plane. A huge part of that event experience that I think helps it stand out is the fact that the speakers are there. They're encouraged to be as big a part of the event as possible. After they get off stage, they talk to people, they answer their questions. Usually they're hanging out in the hallway afterwards for a while until every person in that little cluster around them is done. So how do you encourage that, and how do you make sure that that actually happens when you're dealing with, you know, the potentials of not only people who are very busy and whose time is valuable, but there might be like ego in there and all that. So how do you ensure that that happens?
Well, I think we're blessed in a way by the fact that we're in social media. So people in this industry in general, when they go to an event, they want to meet with their online fans and friends. So I think the speakers come with that innate desire. But over time, we've also, encouraged those speakers. This is the environment that we're creating. We want you to come, at least stay for a day. We hope you'll come for all 3 days, and we make that very compelling for them. Like, they want to be seen as an expert in this industry. They want to be able to help people. Like, those are the people we recruit. If we see somebody literally who has come to the event and all they do is pop in, give their talk, and head to the airport, they'll probably not get invited back. And that's not a diss on them. Like, they're busy, they have their own priorities, but the environment or the culture that we're trying to create is that one of accessibility. A second thing that we do is, while we have a room where speakers go and check in and can be quiet to prepare for their session, we don't have the traditional green room where speakers disappear and just hang out with each other. We actually discourage that. We say, hey, look, all these people are paying to be with you. We hope you'll hang out. There are opportunities where you can hang out with each other. We create a special party just for speakers, and there are those things that happen. So I think those are a couple of choices that we make. We are specific in how we recruit. And then we're also, we've made it hard for them to just hole up and disappear.
I love that. And it's funny because a couple of people who we have here in the chat are going to be there with us. There's Dewey, Eric Jones, who's going to be joining us from Wales. And there's Tim Lewis, who's going to be joining us from the UK. And he says, I think it helps that San Diego is a bit of a holiday place. That's certainly true. But at the same time, you have been involved in planning other events that are not in San Diego. I know that you were involved in Social Media Day Wichita that I attended a few years ago. I don't know if you're involved in this year's, but in terms of other events that you've planned, what are some commonalities that you make sure when you're planning them? And then how do you incorporate differences? Because other events aren't exactly like social media world, obviously. So how do you sort of put an individual touch on those events?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it really does start with, what's your goal? Like, who is the audience that you're trying to reach? What are they coming there for? If you don't understand that, then you're not going to be able to create the right experience for them. But it's going to be very different if you're planning an event in Wichita versus San Diego. But people are still coming to connect. But Wichita's, I'll just use that as an example. When you're in a place where everybody already knows each other, then networking looks different than in a place where people are traveling from across the globe. So you have to factor that in. What is it that they're really coming for? What are they valuing? Do you have people that are going to benefit from each other? So understanding the goals of the people coming, understanding what they're trying to learn is going to be important. Understanding what opportunities you have. I think in general, the things like, beaches and all the attractions in San Diego are great, but what they really came for is the experience that they're going to have within the event. And you can do that inside of a hotel. You can do that inside of, an aircraft carrier, which is fun and it's memorable and it's cool. But when people go back home, they might show pictures of the aircraft carrier, but what they're really going to remember is the way they felt when they met somebody that they really wanted to meet and the conversation that they had. the friends that they developed, the partnerships that they formed, the mastermind they created. That's what they're going to really remember over time. And you can create that in Fargo, North Dakota. You can create that in San Diego or in London.
I love that. And I especially love what you pointed out about the feeling. The feeling is what they're left with. The feeling is what they remember. The feeling is ultimately a far bigger impression than, how many snacks there were or even who was up on stage. I would love to hear from you how you in the elements of the brand, because of course, Social Media Marketing World is run by Social Media Examiner. It is their event and it feels different from, Inbound, which is run by HubSpot, or Content Marketing World. It feels different than these events that are run by other companies, and it brings a lot of people to the brand of Social Media Examiner. So that said, what elements do you make sure are aligned with the brand? What elements of that Social Media Examiner brand do you bring in? How do you figure out how to do that without it feeling like just kind of a big old commercial? Though it kind of is too, but how do you bring the brand?
Yeah, and it's interesting because Social Media Marketing World has its own brand that has been distinct from Social Media Examiner. Social Media Examiner is a jungle, it's Scout with the magnifying glass, and we've been very intentional about keeping the branding of Social Media Marketing World, which is much more of a Southern California beach sort of brand, separate. Now, as over time, we've brought them a little bit closer together. You'll see Scout show up at the event. But the brand of Social Media Marketing World is discovery, networking, fun. Those are the words that have been in the logo from the very first year. And that really does resonate with what we try to do. Southern California is all about casual fun. So, one of the things is our staff does not wear suits and ties. They wear white t-shirts or black t-shirts, depending on what their role is, because in Southern California, people don't wear suits very often, but they do wear t-shirts. And so everyone will be wearing a t-shirt if you come to the event. If you want help from someone, look for a white shirt. It makes it super easy to find them. And they are having fun. That's another thing though, is fun. So we try to create a culture that is upbeat, that's friendly, that's welcoming. We want people to feel included. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel like this is their tribe. So that is very on brand with social media and who we are as a company. Like, we're trying to be trail guides. That is something that we say as a company. We want to be your trail guide and pointing you through the jungle of social media. We're not the experts. We lead you to the experts. So we bring together the experts, and we're the guides that are going to help you navigate all the changes. And when the jungle covers over a path, we're going to help you find that new path. So that's kind of the way it shows up in the branding. Is, all of our graphics, all of our decor definitely fits into the Southern California vibe. Not so much the jungle vibe. There's a little bit of that. So branding is there. Color schemes, to some extent, we're intentional about it. Other places, it's not, we don't make it like in your face, but we will on the stages. Like, our backdrops are very much designed that way. And we know people are taking pictures. This is probably one thing that we're intentional about, that not every conference worries about, but because we know so many people are taking pictures and videos during the conference, we're intentional about what the stage looks like. So if you're taking a picture or video of Mari Smith, and she's got that backdrop, then people are going to instantly know, she's at Social Media Marketing World. And you can see many of the speakers on LinkedIn have a picture from our conference, and it's instantly recognizable. And it's great for us. They want it because they know that that's like a stage that they've been trying to get on for years sometimes.
Yeah.
Or it's, good to be able to say that. So like, that's mutually reinforcing, and we didn't have to say anything other than, of course, they want to take their picture on that stage. That's them saying it. We just tried to create a beautiful place where it's on brand. It feels good in the room. It looks good when it's online.
And it's highly recognizable. You're right. There's no question what stage they're on when you see that. And you also create little photo op moments in the conference center. There's always that lifeguard stand. There's like surfboards and all of that stuff. Lots of photo op moments that are all on brand. They don't even necessarily have to say what it is for you to know exactly where it's from. And that's such a good point. And you do need to be aware of the fact that You will be in pictures. Got to make sure that it's clear where it was so that it can help with that. Tim Lewis has a question. He's wondering, what has Phil taken things from other events to after attending them to social media marketing world? So I guess what he's saying is, if you've attended another event, has there been a light bulb moment where you're like, oh, we should do that?
Actually, it's more the ones that are coming to mind are things we shouldn't do that. And I'm going to tell you two stories of events that you know. One is I went to NAMM, which is National Association of Music Merchandisers, huge 100,000 person conference. And when I got there, I didn't know what I was showing up for. Like the people at NAMM come to our conference and they said, you should come check ours out. They knew I was a musician. So I went and I had some people that I wanted to meet, but I was trying to meet one of my friends. And you can imagine a huge convention center, 100,000 people spread across a bunch of different places, and we could not connect. We would text each other and say where we were. By the time I got to where he said he was, he had moved on. And this went on for an hour or two. And the event was just overwhelming. And the maps that they gave you like a 60, 80 page book of maps and advertisements. And I couldn't make sense of it. So what I learned at that event was you've got to make it way simpler for people. You've got to make it easy for people to figure out where they want to be, when they want to be there. You can't give them a magazine that requires hours of study, like almost taking a course just to be able to figure out. So that was a lesson that I learned, is make it easy and make your staff available, looking for the people who are lost. It's a funny story. I'm an introvert. After trying to find this guy for a couple of hours, I was so exhausted, and this is hilarious to say it like this, but I was so exhausted that I walked a mile back to my hotel room, took a nap, and then walked a mile back, which is crazy to say that I walked 2 miles because I was that tired that I wanted to escape, but that's actually what I did. So the other one, and you love inbound, I love inbound, but something happened to inbound that I didn't love. And that was, there was a keynote that I attended. And at the end of this keynote, it was actually a really good keynote. I enjoyed what the person had to say. I was sitting with some friends and I was really looking forward to talking about something that the speaker just said. But what happened is the AV team at that moment, at the end of it, turned up the music as loud as they felt like they possibly could in an attempt to clear the room so that we would leave so they could get ready for what was next. And the music drove the thoughts out of my brain. All I could think about was get out of here. And by the time I made it out of the room, I'd forgotten everything that had just happened. I don't even remember who the speaker was. That it's this bad. I don't remember who the speaker was. I do remember I was with Marcus Sheridan and George Thomas and a couple other people. I had no idea what it was. And I said, we're never doing that. I want to create space where people can stick around and linger. And so one thing that we're doing this year that we've never done is we made the breaks longer so that people can linger and have conversations without feeling rushed to go off to the bathroom, grab a cup of coffee, and jet down the hall to the next session. I want people to feel like you can have that conversation for a few minutes and still get in your biological needs on the break. So those are a couple of things that I've learned from other events that were not great experiences. I'll say the third one. I've been to so many events where you walk into registration, you get checked in, and then you're like, okay, now what?
Yes.
And
Oh, goodness.
and that's awful. So I said, we're not doing that. We're going to have people there. They're going to usher you into an experience where you feel like you really belong. Now, if you show up at a weird time, that's probably going to happen at any event, even ours. But if you show up at a normal time,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't walk through, grab your badge, and now you're looking around, where am I? So I think I've probably learned way more from what went wrong. Like even, I'm sorry if I tell too many stories, but I went to at Inbound, their convention center staff thought I was crazy that I couldn't figure out their building. They made me feel foolish.
That's a very confusing building.
It is a confusing building. And I was lost and I went and asked them and they're like, you fool. So one of the things I do is I meet with our San Diego Convention Center staff before the conference. Yeah. I explain what the goals are. And I explain that one of our values is customer service. We value customer service because we want people to feel welcome. We don't want them feeling lost. We want them to feel secure. Because I think if you feel safe, if you feel welcome, you feel like you belong, you're way more likely to lean in to the event and have a great experience. And so they love it when I do that. And that's actually one of the values of this convention center, but they do an even above and beyond job for us. I hear stories every year of how their staff took someone who looked lost, and it wasn't someone wearing our t-shirt, it was convention center staff, and they took them and they led them from point A to point B, and they went beyond what they needed to do to help them. I'm like, that is what we want to do.
Yeah, I went to an event at Madison Square Garden a bunch of years ago, and it was so clear that they had blown their entire budget and planning on big name speakers and left nothing for experience. When we checked in, there was nobody guiding us where to go. So I finally just kind of followed people. We're just kind of milling about in this area near like concession stands. There was no water, no free water anywhere, which killed me. And after one of the keynotes that was before lunch, they didn't have lunch for us, but after the keynote that was right before lunch, the staff, the Madison Square Garden staff, just like was like, go, go, go. They were ushering us out, all of us out one tiny door out onto the street, like not even near restrooms. We couldn't even go to the restroom. They were just like out. It was terrible. It was the worst. Anyway, that's a difference.
Wow.
But social media marketing world is basically the exact opposite of that. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions from our Twitter chat, folks. So one of them is big thing is about how to make the event valuable for organizers, speakers, and attendees. And that dovetails into another question, which is basically making it easy for event attendees to take their learning back to their teams and implement it. So how do you ensure not just a feel-good experience, but a valuable one?
Well, first of all, we make sure the speakers understand who the audience is, who they're speaking to, and that they are looking for takeaways. So that's one of the things. Another thing that we do is I recruit people who are professional MCs at other events to MC our event. So I think you've spoken at events, Christine, and I've spoken at events where the person that introduces you kind of feels like they got dragged off the street. Said, hey, would you read this card and go introduce this person? I went actually go out and find people who are MCs in their regular life, and they're coming in and cultivating an experience that help to create those moments where people can reflect and think. We also create something called a 21-day challenge at the end of the event. No money attached to it. It's just a personal development opportunity to say, how can I take what I've learned and begin applying it right away? We encourage people to meet in groups, to learn with each other, to hold each other accountable. A lot of it, learning is something you have to choose to do. We can't force you to learn, but we do create the structure of the event in such a way that you can not only learn from speakers, but you can learn from the sponsors and learn from the fellow attendees. And it starts, before you ever get there. We're asking questions right now in our Facebook group to get people talking to each other about, what do you want to learn? What are your goals? What are your questions now? Let's get you some value now, so that by the time they get to the conference, they've already been learning. They're already ready. They're creating their own plan. So our main MC will be guiding people through the experience and challenging them to say, what are you going to do? What's the biggest thing you're going to take away? What I see happen at too many conferences, and it can happen at ours too, is the experience can feel like a fire hose. Tim talked about South by Southwest. I know it happens there. It happened at NAMM. It's happened at our conference. You walk away and you feel like you got blasted. And that's it. From an organizer perspective, that can sound like that's a great thing. Wow, we gave them so much value. We just, they felt like it was a fire hose. They were just more than they could handle. And isn't that amazing? And if you're on the receiving end of a fire hose blast, that is not a good experience. You don't want that. It's like you've been sandblasted, and you may walk away having had no benefit from it. So we'd rather you walk away with a couple, or maybe even just one big thing that you're going to walk away with. So we try to create the space for that. Our MCs are part of it. The structure of the event, the schedule is part of it. The intentionality about building community online and in person, all those things feed into that.
And that's so true. I can tell you exactly what my key takeaway was from each of the social media marketing worlds that I have attended. The thing that stuck out about me about each year, like this year was defined by this year was defined by that. And as for, by the way, I have a tip for the fire hose of information that people get at these things. One thing that I try to do is after a session, while it is fresh in my brain, I'll make a little video. First of all, I live tweet threads of what's going on the stage. I love live tweeting the threads. So I can go back and look at my notes and be like, oh yeah, that was a great point. But I also like doing a little video for myself. It's creating content. I can share that outwardly, but then also it's while it's still in my brain, because the next session is going to knock all that right out.
Yes.
So,
that's a great idea.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, always looking for content opportunities, right? So the final question from Jeff, I really liked this one. It's a two-parter. One of them is about why the barbecued Pringles potato chip idea was taken from you. So that's a reference to a story in your LinkedIn. But then also, overseeing special events is grueling. It takes a lot out of you, especially if you're doing it right, like you are. How do you recharge?
I cannot tell you why the barbecue Pringles got taken away from me because they never acknowledged the petition that I sent. I had over 100 people sign a petition saying they should create a barbecued Pringle. It happened at the fourth grade lunch table. I took a regular chip and a Pringle and a barbecue chip, put them together and said, man, this would be amazing. My friends all agreed. So we went out and I was the main one. We got all the petitions, sent it in, nothing. So,
too bad you didn't have social media. It could have been a whole movement and they could have traced the intellectual property back to you.
I know. And there's really no way for me to prove that that's what happened because it's just my story. But I do have friends who would tell you that it happened, but
I believe you.
I just think I did that because it's funny. As far as how I recharge myself, definitely I usually after a week or so, actually the first week, I'm sleeping a lot. I'll be sleeping long days. My wife usually tells me, don't come home right away because I know all you're going to do is sleep. So just take a couple extra days and get some of that out of your body because I need you back. So rest for sure and doing something different. Like it's hard for me to come back from a big event and just immediately hit the ground running on the next project. I need some space to just kind of do something different, do something that I enjoy doing. So I know this year when I get back from the conference, I'm going to be turning gears and starting to play pickleball again. I've not been able to play for about a year. And so when I get back, that's already a goal. Like I'm going to go ahead and start playing again. And I want to get to a level where I can maybe do some tournaments. So it'll be just something fun. It's an outlet. It's like, it'll be enjoyable.
I love that. All right, Phil, thank you so much for being here today. Tell everyone where they can and should find you.
Probably the best places to follow me are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And Instagram. You can do all four. You'll find me on any of those. And I share things on them infrequently, but will be more frequently. Probably where I write the longest stuff is on LinkedIn. The more personal stuff is on Facebook. I also have a faith-based show called Man in the Pew. That shows up more on Instagram and Twitter. I check it out. It's probably where I spend the least time, though.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And of course, a really great place to find you is in San Diego in March at Social Media Marketing World. By the way, we did have one question that I didn't ask, which is Jonathan Gabby wants to know, how can he get into a band with you at Social Media Marketing World?
It's a great question. Bring your instrument. We'll see if something happens.
Are you bringing your sax?
I'm hoping to. Yes, I've been recovering from an injury and I can just now start playing again. So I'm hoping I'll be ready in 31 days. 31 days is the conference.
Oh my goodness, so soon. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Phil, for being here. It was fantastic. Thank you. And again, we are here every single Friday for Let's Talk About Brand, talking to different experts each week about a specific element of branding. We also have the Tuesday Chat About Brand on Twitter. And next Tuesday, we are going to be chatting about branding a community. This is something that I'm especially interested in right now because for those who don't already know, I am working on building the social media pulse community with Agora Pulse. I'll put links to that in the comments as well. We'll definitely all be at Social Media Marketing World next month. But I'm going to be talking to someone who's already running an incredibly successful community and doing it just so well. And that is the wonderful Christina Garnett. Many of you, especially if you're on Twitter, especially hashtag marketing Twitter, you're probably already connected to Christina. She's an incredible person who just brings this community mentality to everything she does, especially the HubSpot community that she runs. So please be sure to join us for Chat About Brand on Twitter on Tuesday at noon Eastern, and for Let's Talk About Brand on all the channels on Friday at noon Eastern. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.